Flying into New Delhi is a magical experience, in particular because most flights come in along the Indo-Gangetic Plain and parallel to the Himalaya, with the Ganges in the foreground and the towering Himalaya in the background. Upon arrival, I met up with Charlie and we set off. This was Charlie's first time to India.
Here we are, we're in New Delhi in a tuk-tuk heading to the hostel, and then we'll take the train to Dehradun tomorrow. We're on the train to Dehradun.
From New Delhi, we headed north towards the frontal thrust of the Himalaya, where sediments from the Himalaya, called the Shiwaliks, are thrust on top of themselves as the entire mountain range moves to the south. Crossing the main frontal thrust, we entered the Doon Valley.
Driving through the Doon Valley is absolutely spectacular because on one side we've got the main frontal thrust, which is the very frontal part of the Himalayan orogenic system. And then on the other side, to the north of the Doon Valley, is the main boundary thrust. And this is where the rocks of the Lesser Himalayan sequence are thrust up on top of the synorogenic basin and overrides the orogenic sediments.
As we pass from the Shiwaliks and the Doon Valley into the Lesser Himalaya, the topography dramatically changes from rolling hills to some proper mountains.
We're now up here in the Lesser Himalayan sequence, which is part of the Indian passive margin that had formed going back even as old as 1.8 billion years ago. And all of this sedimentary material was then scraped off when India collided with Asia in the past 50 million years or so. And you can see down below me, this is the Ganges River. And this river represents the lifeblood of not only the communities that are living here in the Himalayas, but the communities throughout northern India.
After driving all day, we started gaining elevation quickly as evening fell and the temperature began to drop.
We're here at a place called Pelong, and this place represents the boundary between the Lesser Himalayan sequence and the Greater Himalayan sequence. So right up this river valley here is the main central thrust zone. So this is the boundary between the unmetamorphosed sedimentary rocks and the high-grade metamorphic rocks of the Greater Himalayan sequence.
We stayed the night in the town of Josimath, where we stocked up with supplies and headed off early the next morning. It is within the Greater Himalayan sequence when you really start to get a feel for the scale of these mountains. The elevation gain was immense. We gained nearly 1,500 meters elevation in less than 2 hours driving. But being so close to the Chinese border and given the delicate political situation of the region, it was no surprise to see the Indian military along the road.
I'm here in a place called Badranath, which is a sacred site for the Hindu people that is right on the China-India border. And we've come to Badranath specifically to understand the melting process that occurs in the high Himalaya. And we're here not only to understand the timing of the melting process, but also the chemical partitioning that occurs as melt is extracted from the host rock, and then it pools in melt bodies, starting out as small dikes and then coalescing into much larger granite plutons that are found up at the near the top of the peaks.
After a quick visit to the Badranath temple, we began the trek into the mountains. Climbing another 500 meters in elevation, we arrived at base camp at 3,500 meters.
All All right, base camp number 1. Nice job, buddy.
With the help of the amazing cooking of our friend Aditya, we were sure to have the energy we needed for the hard days of fieldwork that followed.
It's cold outside, but the view is too good to close the tent doors. And check out the other side. Yeah. From base camp, we hiked up to about 4,000 meters here, and it never ceases to surprise me how much of a difference 2,000 meters elevation makes on how tired I get. But what is spectacular, as you can see behind me on this cliff face, some of the most spectacular granite dikes and migmatites that I've ever seen. And we're collecting some really good samples, but the best samples always seem to be just that much out of reach. But we'll do the best that we can. Well, it's started snowing. We're at 4,500 meters, and I guess that's not to be unexpected given it's mid-October in the Himalayas, but all's well.
After completing a successful sampling excursion and topping out at nearly 5,000 meters elevation, we began the long trip back to Delhi. But no trip would be complete without first bathing in the Ganges. Our trip could not have been possible without our friends at the Wadia Institute of Himalayan Geology. Immense thanks goes to Himanshu, Aditya, and Shashi for making our trip a great success. And thanks to Charlie for working hard and being a great sport.